Hi, my name's Sophie. Welcome back to TLC. Today's deep dive is on Boomerang and how to sequence it within your Pilates class. So if you joined me for my class previously, I love to sequence Boomerang at the end of class. Once you've kind of warmed up the whole body, it's a really dynamic, advanced exercise. So you do want to get all of the joints mobile and warm before it. So for instance, if you're thinking about Boomerang, it's quite flexy through the hamstrings, it's quite strong through the core. You need a lot of momentum, so exercises like rolling like a ball is really good, or even your half roll back just to get the lower abdominals firing. And then we also need a little bit of upper body work, getting us pressed into that mat, all of this sort of stuff. We need to think about exercises that will help us get there. So for instance, in my class, I cued a bit of mobility through the spine, so some glute activation and mobility through the spine. We then went into some abdominal work, so getting the core really fired up. We did quite a bit of mobility work. So I did some wild things, so getting really stretchy through the body and just letting the body move, because a Boomerang exercise is quite a lot of coordination. So you just want to get your participants' brains also ready for that advanced exercise. So when you're cueing a class or designing a class around that peak pose, think about, is it focusing on coordination? Is it focusing on stamina, stability, mobilization? What does it focus on? And how can I kind of create my class around that? So for Boomerang, it's a lot of coordination as well as a lot of mobility. So that's what I based my class around, and I sequenced it right at the end of class when we were ready for it, kind of mentally. Some other exercises that I put into my class were some standing work, so getting balance within my class. Within my lunges that I chose to do, I also added in some upper body that was kind of similar to the arm movements that you would have in your Boomerang. So if you're sequencing an advanced class in the middle or at the end of your class that you're picking, just thinking about not just what the exercise mainly focuses on, but the little parts of that exercise that you can also intertwine throughout your class. So for me, it was the arms that I wanted to focus on. So your little round and dying swan moment of a Boomerang, I wanted to kind of put into the class in some creative way. So I added that in with my leg sequence, also adding in a little bit of a balance challenge to just get everybody's brains waking up and ready for the exercise. Now, how would you cue your Boomerang? So the way I cued it within my class, I always like to start with almost like a roll like a ball in a really friendly way for everybody to be able to access Boomerang, so it doesn't feel like a really scary exercise. So for me, I started with your roll like a ball. I got you to hold in a little Pilates V or a boat hold, and we just did that with a toe tap and our arm circle, or your dying swan as I like to call it. So that's the way I introduced the exercise. So really simple, kind of 3 movements out of the whole Boomerang I focused on, and I modified it with your bent knees and the hands behind the thighs. So it is accessible to pretty much everybody unless they've got a spinal injury or tailbone injuries, anything like that. Everybody should be able to have a little bit of a go at it at least, so you're not kind of singling out only the strong people who can only do Boomerang. You've given them these pre-existing exercises that are a little bit more friendly for everybody. Then we added on, so we did our roll like a ball, hold in your boat pose or your V position. Then we added our chest expansion and our dying swan. So I just added on one layer at a time until we got to a leg extension. We go into our leg lift, so you want to hold it there, press into the palms, legs stay extended. We don't want to drop the legs too much over the head, so we want them strong and extended. Crisscross the legs, roll down through the spine. So this is where it's really important to find spinal articulation throughout your class, because it's quite a strong exercise. Momentum helps us get up, so we want exercises that focus on momentum. We keep it in this V position. Open up through the chest, so we've already introduced this, but now we've got our legs lengthening, and then we drop as we circle dying swan. So that is how I would cue it. Really strip it back and just pick a few pieces of that puzzle to introduce at a time, layering up until you get to your full boomerang. This is an exercise that I would get down and do with my class because it's much easier for them to kind of see what you're doing as you describe it. If you're up and describing it, it's really hard for people to understand every single part of the exercise. So let's just try it again. You've got one leg over the other for your full boomerang. Fingertips you start in a little rounded C shape. We need momentum here to help us lift to a V. We hold. Let yourself roll back, press into your palms. Legs are nice and strong. Crisscross, roll it down through your spine, hold in your V. We expand through the chest. As the legs come down, we scoop the arms and dying swan forward. That is your scoop, and then we start it again and go from there. That's your boomerang. Thank you so much for joining me for your deep dive.